Our next guest is known as the Godfather of AI and recently was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for his pioneering work in artificial intelligence. He's also gotten under Elon Musk's skin. We'll have to ask about that. He is Geoffrey Hinton, Professor Emeritus of Computer Science at the University of Toronto, and he joins us now to discuss the promise and perils of advanced AI. So good to have you back in the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're going to show a little clip off the top here of, I suspect, one of the better days of your life. Sheldon, if you would. That was King Carl the 16th of Sweden, and you are getting, in Stockholm, the Nobel Prize. When does the buzz of all of that wear off?
I'll tell you when it wears off.
It still has not?
Not completely, no.
Not completely. How cool a day was that?
It was amazing, yeah. Particularly since I don't do physics and I got the Nobel Prize in Physics.
You want to explain how that happened?
I think they wanted to award a Nobel Prize for the developments in AI, because that's where a lot of the excitement in science is now. And so they sort of repurposed the physics one by pretending I did physics.
Did you point that out to them?
Yes.
So thanks for the Nobel Prize, but you guys know I don't do physics. Is that what you said?
That's what I said, yes.
And did they say, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, or what?
Pretty much, yeah.
You get a medal, right?
Oh, you do, yes.
Yeah. Where do you keep the medallion?
I'm not telling you.
I'm not going to steal it, Geoffrey.
No, but somebody else might.
Oh, all right, all right.
It's 6 ounces of gold. It's worth about $15,000.
So you
if
won't
you melt it down.
So you're not going to tell me if it's at home or if you keep it in a safe deposit box or whatever?
No.
You're not? Okay, fair enough. I'm going to read what you won for. You won for, quote, foundational discoveries and inventions that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks. And I know you've been asked 1,000,000 times, what does that mean in English? So let's make it 1,000,001. What does that mean in English?
Okay, in your brain, you have a whole bunch of brain cells called neurons, and they have connections. And when you learn something new, what's happening is you're changing the strengths of those connections. And so to figure out how the brain works, you have to figure out what the rule is for changing the strengths of connections. That's all you need to know. How does the brain decide whether to make a connection stronger or weaker so that you'll be better at doing something like understanding what I just said? And your brain has a way of figuring out whether to make a connection strength slightly stronger or slightly weaker. And the question is, what is that way? How does it do it? And what happens if you can mimic that and take a big network of simulated brain cells, and we now know what happens, it gets very smart.
Of all the different thousands and thousands of areas of scientific research that you could have done, why that one?
Because that's clearly the most interesting one.
To you?
I think it's actually the most interesting.
To everyone?
Because in order to understand people, you really need to understand how the brain works. And so how the brain works is, we still don't know properly how the brain works. We have more ideas than we did. But that seems like just a huge issue.
You were obviously very well known you were well known before you got the Nobel, but then you got the Nobel, and of course that has an explosive effect on one's profile. Since then, you have been warning us about the perils of AI. You even quit your job at Google a couple of years ago because of concerns about this. So let's break this down. The short-term risks of not having adequate control of artificial intelligence are what, in your view?
Okay, so there's really two kinds of risk. There's risks due to bad actors misusing it, and those are more short-term risks. Those are more immediate, it's already happening. And then there's a completely different kind of risk, which is when it gets smarter than us, is it going to want to take over? Is it going to want to just brush us aside and take over? And how many examples do you know of more intelligent things being controlled by much less intelligent things?
Not many.
I mean, we know sort of more intelligent people can be controlled by less intelligent people, but that's not a big difference in intelligence.
I was going to make a Trump joke there, but never mind. We're going to move on.
So was I, but I avoided it. I just alluded to it.
Okay. Bad actors. Let's start with that one there. Give us an example of the concern that you have about bad actors exploiting this.
Well, somebody getting lots of data about people and using that data to target fake AI videos to persuade those people, for example, not to vote. That would be a bad actor.
That would be a problem, yes.
And those are the kinds of problems we're already facing. Cyber attacks. So between 2023 and 2024, phishing attacks went up by 1,200%. There were 12 times more phishing attacks in 2024 than in 2023. And that's because these large language models made them much more effective. So it used to be you get a phishing attack where the syntax was slightly wrong. It was kind of direct translation from the Ukrainian or whatever. And the spelling was slightly wrong. And so you knew this was a phishing attack. Now they're all in perfect English.
It's getting too sophisticated now.
Yeah.
Okay. How about examples of the second thing you said? Dumber people being in control of smarter people, or dumber things being in control of smarter things.
There's only one example I know, actually, and that's a baby and a mother. It's very important for the baby to control the mother. And evolution put a huge amount of work into making the baby's cries be unbearable to the mother. But that's about it.
The longer term risks that you are worried about, we just talked short term, how about longer term?
Well, the long-term risk is it's going to get smarter than us. Almost all the leading researchers agree that it will get smarter than us. They just disagree on when. Some people think it's maybe 20 years away. Other people think it's 3 years away. A few people think it's 1 year away. And so we all agree it's going to get smarter than us. And the question is, what happens then? And basically, we have no idea. People have opinions, but we don't have any good foundation for estimating these probabilities. So I would guess there's a 10 to 20% chance it'll take over, but I have no idea really. It's more than 1% and it's less than 99%.
When you say take over, I think you've gone further than that. I think you've said there's a 10 to 20% chance that we will be rendered extinct.
Yeah, if it takes over, that's what'll happen.
Do you want to give us a time frame on that?
No, because like I say, there's no good way to estimate it. But if we don't do something about it now, it might not be that long. Right now, we're at a point in history where there's still a chance we could figure out how to develop superintelligent AI and make it safe. We don't know how to do that. We don't even know if it's possible. Hopefully it's possible. And if it is possible, we ought to try and figure that out. And we ought to spend a lot of effort trying to figure that out.
Can you play out that scenario for us? How would they render us extinct because of their superiority?
There's so many different ways they could do that if they wanted to. I don't think there's much point speculating. I don't think it would be like Terminator. They could, for example, create a virus that just kills us all.
Okay, so we've clearly got to get a handle on that. Are we doing it?
It would be a good idea to get a handle on that. And there is research on safety, and there's research on this existential threat that they might just take over, but not nearly enough. And the big companies are motivated by short-term profits. What we need is the people to tell the governments they ought to make these big companies do more research on safety. They ought to spend like a third of their resources on it, something like that.
How's that going?
People are becoming more aware, politicians are becoming more aware. Recently in the States there was a step backwards, but...
Do you want to refer to what you're talking about there?
The Biden administration was interested in AI safety and had an executive order, and I think it's gone the way of all of Biden's executive orders under Trump.
As in it's been reversed?
Yeah.
Okay. And I presume it's been reversed because the richest, techiest people in the United States are all supporting this administration right now. Fair to say?
It's sad to say, yes.
All right, clearly you would like to see us get a handle on this. What can we do? Since it appears that there isn't the consensus there to do anything about this at the moment.
Yes, the first thing to do is build consensus that this is a really serious problem. It's not just science fiction. And we need to persuade the big companies to do more research on safety. It's like climate change. You had to first build consensus that there really is climate change and it's really going to be terrible if we don't do anything about it. And then you could start getting action. Not enough action, but at least some. With this, we first need the consensus. But one piece of good news is, for the existential threat that it might wipe people out. All the different countries should be able to collaborate. We should be able to collaborate with the Chinese. Actually, I'm not sure who we is anymore. I used to think of we as, Canada and America, but that's not a we anymore.
It is not. You are right.
But anyway, countries should be able to collaborate because nobody wants to get wiped out. The Chinese leaders don't want to get wiped out. Trump doesn't want to get wiped out. They can collaborate on the existential threat. So that's a little piece of good news. But the bad news is we don't know what to do about it, and we desperately need research now to figure out what to do about it.
Is there an international institution that you see leading the way to get that collaboration?
There's a number of organizations that are trying to help with that, but no dominant one yet.
I mean, is it a job for the UN or who?
Well, the UN is sort of a bit pathetic, right? It's not up to this, really.
Who's up to it?
The big companies have the resources. So to do research on AI safety, you need to be dealing with the latest, most advanced models. And only the big companies have the resources to train those.
Okay. Let's talk about the richest man in the world, shall we? I gather you're not
If
on
we have to.
Well, I gather you're not on his Christmas card list anymore.
Okay, so I agree with him on various things. I agree with him on the existential threat, for example. He takes it seriously. And he's done some good things like electric cars and communications for people in Ukraine using Starlink. So he's definitely done some good things. But what he's doing now with Doge is obscene. What's happening is he's cutting almost at random lots of government workers, so good, honest people who go to work and do their job. He's accusing them of being corrupt and lazy and useless and just cutting their jobs. And it's going to be terrible. It's going to have terrible consequences on people. And he just doesn't seem to care. So the only time I've seen him care was when I criticized him and he said I was cruel.
Well, let's do this here. You went on his home turf, X, formerly Twitter, and you tweeted, "I think Elon Musk should be expelled from the British Royal Society, not because he peddles conspiracy theories and makes Nazi salutes, but because of the huge damage he is doing to scientific institutions in the US. Now let's see if he really believes in free speech." And apparently you caught his attention because he tweeted back at you, "Only craven, insecure fools care about awards and memberships. History is the actual judge, always and forever. Your comments above are carelessly ignorant, cruel, and false. That said, what specific actions require correction? I will make mistakes, but endeavor to fix them fast." Okay, what was your reaction to his tweet?
I thought it's best not to get involved in a long series of exchanges with Elon Musk because I want to be able to get into the US. And my friend, Yann LeCun, answered those questions.
Okay, and where would we be able to see the answers?
On Twitter. If you look at
on X right underneath.
If you look at it's underneath that.
So that's the only interaction you had directly with him?
A couple of years ago, he asked me to call him because he wanted to talk about the existential threat. Actually, he wanted to recruit me to be an advisor for X. So
What'd you say?
XAI. So we talked about the existential threat for a bit. And then he asked if I would be an advisor for his new XAI company. And I said no. He thought I might agree because he employed one of my best students as one of the technical people there. And then he started just rambling. And so I made up a meeting and said, "I'm sorry, Elon, I have another meeting, so I have to go."
And that's it?
That's it.
If I can sort of break this thing in two, I mean, he takes some fairly personal shots at you at the beginning, as you did at him. I mean, not everybody agrees that what he was doing when he got up on stage and did that thing was a Nazi salute. He would argue he was just throwing his heart out to the crowd.
Sure.
You're not buying that?
No.
You're not buying that. Okay.
Particularly if you look at his history and his parents' views and so on.
He does seem to cozy up to some fascistic situations here and there, yes. But then the second part of this is rather constructive. He's asked you for advice on what corrections he can make.
Yes, and I let somebody else answer that. Yann answered that, so I left that
Okay.
alone.
Do you want to just share maybe one or two of the things that you think he ought to do?
Well, if he's going to, I mean, let's get straight what's going on here. He wants there to be an enormous tax cut for the rich. He wants a $4 trillion tax cut. That's what it's going to cost. And in order to get the money for that without increasing the national debt hugely, they have to cut somewhere.
Or
two
put tariffs on us.
The two things they're planning to do are cut government spending and have tariffs, which are really a tax on the poor. Tariffs are a non-progressive tax. They're going to make everything more expensive. And so normal people are going to end up paying $4 trillion more for what they buy to pay for the tax cuts for the rich. This is disgusting.
This is government policy in the United States right now.
Which is disgusting.
You talk about damage to scientific institutions in the United States. Referring to what?
Well, for example, if you put a crazy guy with a worm in his brain in charge of the health system...
That would be RFK Jr. that you're referring to there.
Yeah.
You don't like anything of what he's doing right now.
No, I wouldn't say that. These things are never completely black and white. I think his emphasis on people having a healthy diet is important. Maybe some of the things he is dead against, like seed oils, isn't quite right. But the idea that people should have a healthy diet and that'll improve health, that's an important idea, and he sort of pushes that a bit. But most of the rest of what he says is just nonsense.
You don't share his suspicion about vaccines and pharma and how we get autism and that kind of thing?
No, I don't. So there's been a lot of research on that already.
Yeah.
I mean, people have taken very seriously, because of all these crazy claims. Most of the people who push that just want to sell you medicines or sell you something. They're doing it as a sales technique to get your attention. They don't really believe it themselves. He's had his own kids vaccinated, as far as I know.
That says a lot. I mean, it reminds me of the time when Fox News would be broadcasting 24/7 against the mandatory vaccination, and yet all the Fox employees had to get vaccinated.
Right.
There you go. Okay, we've talked a lot about the perils of AI. Is there anything you can leave with us here that should make us somewhat optimistic that things may actually work out?
Well, one of the reasons AI will be developed, we can't just stop it now, is because there's so many good things will come out of it. So, for example, in healthcare, it's going to do amazing things. You're going to get much, much better healthcare. Like you're going to have a family doctor who's seen 100 million patients, who knows and remembers the results of all the tests that have ever been done on you and on your relatives, and can give much, much better diagnosis. Already, an AI system working with a doctor gets far less errors in diagnosing complex cases than a doctor alone. So already that's happening, and it's going to get much better. It's going to be amazing in education. So we know that a kid with a private tutor will learn about twice as fast, because the tutors can see what the kid misunderstands. Now, AI systems aren't there yet, but sometime in the next 10 years probably, they'll be really good. And so when a kid is learning something, the AI system will be able to see exactly what it is the kid misunderstands, because the AI system's seen a million other kids, right? He knows exactly what the kid misunderstands, exactly what example to give the kid to make it clear what the misunderstanding is. And so if a private tutor that's a person is like two times better, these will be 3 or 4 times better. It may not be good news for universities, but it's very good news for people learning stuff. Not
good news for universities because?
Maybe won't need them anymore.
Won't have to go, well, you know, I mean...
No, you'll need them for doing graduate research, I think. I think you'll still need an apprenticeship to learn how to do research. Because we can't say how you do research. We can say, okay, this problem, I would tackle it this way. We can't really give the rules for it. There aren't any rules. It's an apprenticeship.
All the kids who thought it was going to be a great idea to go to university and learn how to code or take computer science, are they in trouble now?
They may well be, yes. I mean, computer science, you'll learn more than just learning how to code, but...
They call you the Godfather of AI. Do you like that title?
I quite do, actually. It wasn't intended kindly. Someone started calling me that after a meeting in which I was kind of chairing the meeting. I kept interrupting people.
Oh, and therefore they called
me the Godfather.
The Godfather.
Andrew Ng. It was a meeting in Windsor, in England, and after the meeting, Andrew Ng started referring to me as the Godfather.
Because you cut people off?
Because I was sort of,
You were...
Yeah, I was the oldest guy there, and I was pushing people around.
Got it. Half of your Nobel money, which I gather is what, $350,000, something like that?
The whole prize is $1 million, about. And so half of it's $500,000.
$500,000, okay. Of that $500,000, you donated $350 to Water First. Do I have that right?
Yeah, $250,000 US is $350 Canadian.
Got it. What's Water First?
Okay, Water First is an organization that trains people who live in indigenous communities in water technology. So how people who live in those communities can make their water safe.
And why did you pick them?
I adopted a child in Peru, and I lived there for 2 months, and you couldn't drink the tap water. It was kind of lethal. And so I experienced what it's like not to have safe drinking water. And it just if you have a baby and you don't have safe drinking water, it just occupies all your time on how you're going to stop the baby getting sick. And it's just a crazy extra burden to impose on people. And I think it's kind of obscene that in a rich country like Canada, there's all these indigenous communities that don't have safe drinking water. Like in Ontario, 20% of the indigenous communities don't have safe drinking water.
This will not satisfy you. I don't mean it to satisfy you, but it's better today than it was a decade ago.
Maybe.
No, it is. I mean, we can say that.
But they should all have safe drinking water.
Of course they should. Of course they should. Okay, what's ahead for you?
I'm trying to retire. I'm doing a very bad job of it.
How old are you?
77.
Oh, that's way too young to retire.
I thought I left Google at 75 because I wanted to retire.
You got a lot of runway left still.
Maybe.
I mean, you look awfully good for 77, I got to say.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think you got at least 1 or 2 or maybe 3
You look
chapters
awfully
left.
good for 77 too.
Good makeup artist makes all the difference, let me tell you. I'm so grateful you could spare some time to come in and take these impertinent questions today. And who knows, maybe you and Elon will get back together again and try and solve these problems that we need solutions to.
I think that's improbable.
That's Geoffrey Hinton, Professor Emeritus, Computer Science, University of Toronto, who was a Nobel laureate in physics. Thank you for joining us on TVO tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.